I remember the day he came riding down the golden escalator. I'm not a political person by any stretch of the imagination. I vote. I'm a Democrat. I live in New York, so I vote blue. It's just what you do. I mean, people like me vote blue. I'm an artsy person. I know right from wrong, and I was raised to treat everyone equally. I listened to Trump's first speech and I brushed it off. My roommate forced me to watch the debates. I figured there was no way he could win. My roommate was a huge Bernie supporter, and I was just a Democrat. As the debates kept going one by one, the Republicans kept dropping like flies, and then it happened. He won the nomination. Hillary won her nomination. I thought, well, I guess he's not winning. I stopped watching the debates, even though my roommate kept hounding me to keep watching. I couldn't. I had nothing vested into the 2016 election. As I look back, I never had anything vested in any election. I just voted. In October of 2016, I was at my family's house for dinner. I never bring up politics because my family and I are very different. Like I said, they raised me to treat everyone equally, but I noticed a recent shift in their tone. My brother said, "It's crazy that when Trump speaks, I say to myself, wow, that's what's been on my mind for a long time. He's saying what I'm thinking." I felt a pit in my stomach. I know I should have said something. I just kept saying to myself, open your mouth, say something. Then it happened. My sister-in-law said, well, I don't know about Trump, but as a woman, I could never vote for Hillary. Not after she stayed with her husband. Without thinking, I said, what about the grab them by the pussy thing? You could hear a pin drop. My mother looked at me with a look I'd never seen and repeated what so many people have said before. Don't be an idiot. That's just locker room talk. At that moment, I knew I was in the minority. And I said, you're right. Let's just drop it. I don't remember driving home that night. Was I wrong? Is voting blue just because I live in a blue state right? It was too much for me to process. I just put it out of my mind. As election day was getting closer, most of the women in my office had the same view as my mom, except my cube mate, June. She was always quiet, but very nice to me. She never really had an opinion on anything political, but I noticed one day she was wearing a Hillary pin. One of our office mates walked up to her and said, you know it clearly states in the employee handbook that you can't wear political pins or display anything political on your desk, right? We all got a handbook the day we started. Did you read it or did you just put it in your desk drawer? She responded timidly, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. My daughter gave it to me. The coworker walked away mumbling something under her breath. A little while later, June was called into the conference room. When she walked out, her face was as white as a ghost, and her pin was gone. The woman who had said something to her just grinned as June took the long walk back to her desk. My coworkers just stared at her, like she was a prisoner walking to her death. She sat down and I heard a small, muffled sniffle as she pulled a tissue from her Kleenex box and just continued to work. Again, I said nothing. June, who was already a quiet person, was forced to become quieter, if not silent. On election day, I left work early to vote. As I stood up to leave, June turned to me and said with a big smile and a glimmer of hope in her eyes, I'll see you tomorrow, Randy. As I was driving to my polling place, there were so many voices in my head. 1 block away, there was a red light. All I had to do was turn right. The light turned green, and I kept driving. I didn't vote. To this day, I still don't know why I didn't vote. I got to my apartment and my roommate was there. She was excited because she was so optimistic about election night. She eagerly said, "Did you have any trouble voting?" "No," I said. "I got right in." She was having friends over to watch the results. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat with them. As the night went along, the mood got darker and darker until one by one her friends started leaving, until it was just us. I didn't know what to say. She silently turned off the TV and went to bed. Now here I am, sitting home, quarantined alone. I don't have a roommate anymore. My dreamer roommate, who was so excited to vote in the 2016 election for the first time since being naturalized, moved back to California to be with her family. Some of her relatives are gone, deported. I'm all alone. I don't see anyone except for the 2 days a week I go into my office. My cube mate is on opposite days as me, so I don't get to see her as much. Yesterday, I overheard the woman who turned her in about her pen talking to a supervisor. "Isn't it so sad about June's daughter?" My cube mate's daughter went to a protest and was hit with a rubber bullet on the side of her head. She's alive, but completely blind. Blind. I had a hand in that. I had a hand in my roommate's family situation. Blind. I don't care who you vote for. Vote. It's your civic duty. Not voting is a slap in the face to the people who fought, who were jailed, and who died for your right to vote. When I was a kid, I was always taught to treat people equally, but I was also taught to always remember an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Ironically, an article came up on my Facebook feed about that quote and how people were discussing if it was Gandhi or Picasso who responded to that quote, and how people said neither of them responded to it. It was a boring read. I couldn't find either responses. Then there it was. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Blind.